Does the Prime Minister actually agree that our teachers and our nurses should be taking jobs driving taxis rather than being given a chance to look for work in their own field?
We anticipate that labour shortage is going to be a serious concern in the Canadian economy in the years to come, and we want to make sure all Canadians have the opportunity to get the kind of work.
Lots of questions in the House today about the future of employment insurance program in Canada and who can get on it, who has to get off, and what jobs people will get. The Finance Minister, Jim Flaherty, ignited a firestorm yesterday. He confirmed changes are in store, and he suggested, well, look, there's no such thing as a bad job. What did he mean by that? Let's get some details first on the existing EI program. Here's the hot sheet. All right, just to put this in perspective, current EI recipients must have worked from between 420 to 700 hours in the last year. The number of hours required depends on the location and the regional employment rate there. There's 58 regions across the country, so it does change. The recipient must have paid premiums of up to $840 a year. The maximum benefit is $485 a week. Now, again, as I said, it varies across the country. As we just heard from the Prime Minister, labor shortages are a stubborn problem in some pockets of the country. So will changes to EI lure people to fill the gaps, or will they force some Canadians, as the opposition claims, to work outside their skill set or far away from their homes? Joining me now, Diane Finley, Minister of Human Resources and Skills Development, and once again with a hot file, Minister.
Once again?
You got the OAS, and now you've got employment insurance. Can you explain why the changes to employment insurance are needed? And you know, there's a lot of Canadians that rely on this, so they're listening carefully to what you're saying here.
Well, EI is definitely an important support for Canadians who've lost their job through no fault of their own, to help support them while they look for work. That's right in the legislation. But we are facing critical shortages, skills and labor right across the country, in many different sectors, many different parts of the country, and those shortages are only going to get worse. Right now, we're bringing in well over 150, sometimes 180,000 temporary foreign workers a year to fill those jobs that we haven't been able to get Canadians to fill. So we do know that the EI system as it stands, in some cases, is an obstacle to people, to Canadians accepting those jobs. We want to get rid of those obstacles.
Why is it an obstacle?
There are structures within it that make it, that don't, let's just say, they're disincentives to work in some cases. People can be better off staying home than working.
So just give us an example, just so people understand that. Would that be the case of seasonal workers, that they work part of the season in certain areas of the country, well, a lot of areas, and then they go on to EI? Now, some say, you know, that's the livelihood. That's the way it is if you're in seasonal work.
And yet, there are people in seasonal jobs who are on EI, and the employers in those sectors can't get enough workers because there are too many people on EI. So they can't even finish the job for the season because EI has been too attractive, shall we say. So what we want to do is remove the barriers. Things, for example, like when you do work while you're on an EI claim, you could only keep up, in some parts of the country, you could keep up to $75. And then the more you made over $75, your EI got clawed back $1 for every dollar you earned. That's a disincentive. And we know that if people work part-time, often that part-time job can lead to a full-time position. So why would we demotivate people? We've made a change. We've made a change that will allow them to keep 50 cents on every dollar they earn.
In the bill here, and you know, this hinges on, and I'll read Section 608 here from the bill just so people read this, or Section 54 of the Act is amended, it says here, and it says to establish criteria for defining or determining what constitutes suitable employment for different categories of claimants. Now, for those people that may not understand, what suitable employment, in other words, you can't turn down a job if it's suitable. When will we find out a definition of what suitable employment is?
Well, we're going to be bringing that forward soon, but I can assure you that it's going to be based on reasonableness, and it will be a job within your own area. So people will be expected, if they're offered a job that is in their area and that's appropriate to their qualifications, they'll be expected to take it.
But what does the gray area mean? I mean, you know, the NDP are saying things like, will you have a teacher working as a taxi driver? Is that not necessarily a good use of the teacher's skill? Not to denigrate taxi drivers, but to say, is that a proper use of skills?
I just said appropriate to their qualifications. The opposition are fear-mongering as well by saying people will have to move cross-country for minimum wage job. That's not true at all, at all. We are the government that supports families, but we also want to make sure that those families are better off when they're working than when they're not. And that's why we've brought in a whole lot of changes and are bringing in more to the EI system, like allowing people to keep money when they're working on claim, to make sure that they are better off and that employers get the workers they need without having to bring in people from offshore.
But this is the crux of this is, would you be allowed to turn down a job? So if I get laid off, if I'm a civil servant, if I'm a teacher, if I whoever, and there's a job at a grocery store or at a taxi, and I turn it down, what's the line? How do you define that where EI says, sorry, you turn down that job? I mean, you say, I mean, the definition there is crucial. Someone's livelihood could depend on that definition.
Well, we haven't announced those details yet. We want to make sure the legislation gets through first. But it will be suitable or appropriate to the individual's qualifications and within their geographic area.
All right. I'm going to press you one last. Because it's such a crucial issue, you haven't announced it yet, but can you give us a ballpark as to when? Because the debate around this will all be around that definition, because, you know, that's where the rubber hits the road.
Well, it's going to be coming up soon. We do have to get the legislation through. That's important, and what we're seeing lately is a lot of filibustering. We need to get these changes through so that we can help Canadians get back to work, and employers can get the workers they need right here from Canada.
Who monitors this? So how would this happen? Like if someone turns down a job, is there a monitoring system that said, well, you turned down a job, therefore you do not qualify for EI anymore?
Well, it's not turning down any job. Okay, we're not expecting as you described it, a teacher we're not saying, well, you're going to have to go work in pick fruit. That's not it at all.
Although Jim Flaherty did say there's no such thing as a bad job.
And that's not a bad job. I've done it myself, quite frankly. But you got to recognize we want to put the talents and skills to use. But we're going to be helping Canadians to find the jobs. Right now, as a simple example, in Calgary, there are hundreds of people on EI who are listed as being unskilled restaurant workers. And at the same time, restaurant owners are bringing in hundreds of people from offshore because they can't get Canadians to work in the jobs. That doesn't make sense.
So you think now? Do you think those people are exploiting the system? Like, why are they doing it?
Well, there's a lot of reason to do it. In fact, in some cases, people are better off not working. We've got to take that away. In some cases, they don't know that the jobs exist. So we're bringing in a whole system to help them find out about the jobs, how to apply for the jobs, and how to get the jobs and keep them. So they know about them, they can get the jobs, they and their families will be better off.
You know, some might wonder why you're developing this policy with the details after it's in the budget implementation bill. So here it is in the bill. There's a lot of debate about passing it, and yet the crucial details aren't established yet. So why not get the details, study it, and then pass the bill, as opposed to kind of making everyone wait on pins and needles to find out what the details will be in terms of qualification for EI?
Well, there are certain things in the budget. We said that we would be defining it in the future, and we will. And as you're probably aware, regulations have to be developed after legislation. But the legislation already exists that requires people to do a reasonable job search and to accept a suitable job. But the legislation as it stands really doesn't have any teeth, and so we've got to toughen it up so people know what's expected of them. So they know what their responsibilities are when they're on EI, that they're on EI, that's support to help them look for work. That's what it's for. It's to support them while they look for work.
I get that. There is a bit of the assumption here that if you're on EI, you're slightly taking advantage of the system here. I mean, there is that. No. Is there something implicit that you're disincentivized? You're sitting on EI as opposed to looking for work. I mean, is there something to that?
No, there are situations where the structure of the EI system can discourage people from accepting work for which they would otherwise be qualified and be happy to do. And we need to take that away. When an employer has to go offshore to bring in workers, they have to pay for the airfare. They have to make sure accommodation is provided. There's training. There's all sorts of things that make it much more expensive than hiring Canadians. And we need to have Canadians at work. It only makes sense.
All right. Real quickly, 2 questions. The details on suitable employment, you say soon. No date on that. How much time will people have to find a job? Will that change?
Well, their eligibility for EI will be determined by whatever the entry requirements are and the duration in their local EI area.
Right.
That's
not the 58 areas.
In the 50-odd areas, and we've changed that as well to make that fairer across the country, so that where it used to be somebody in one part of the country could get access and duration much longer than in another area with the same unemployment rate. We're changing that as well to make that fairer.
Right, because some people in northern parts of certain provinces will just have less opportunity than in.
And we recognize that there are in some places there aren't jobs for people.
Real quick, why is the government canceling the SIN card?
Well, it costs an awful lot to produce. People still will be getting a social insurance number. They just won't be getting the card, because one of the things we found is that it's one of a piece that's used very frequently for identity theft.
So no cards, but you'll still have the SIN number.
You'll still have the number, but you won't have to worry about losing your card anymore.
Well, I've got you here in the hot seat here. I got to ask you about old age security. There have been debate about how much the changes, with changing the age of eligibility from 65 to 67, how much it will actually save. Jim Flaherty said he's heard figures between 10 and 12 billion. What's the actual savings there?
This isn't about savings. It's not in the budget. There are no savings in the budget. There won't be any changes until 2023, and only then will we bring in a gradual increase of 2 years in the age of eligibility.
It's got to be calculated on a savings, or why do it?
But there's nothing in this year's budget about it. There's nothing for the next 12 years in terms of change, except for one thing, and that is, starting this next year, seniors will be able to defer their OAS if they choose and collect a higher amount when they take it out.
But in the House, there's all this debate that you're not cutting anything from seniors, but you will delay low-income seniors from qualifying for 2 extra years. So that is a de facto cut of seniors. If you could collect at 65 and you're low income and qualify for other income, then isn't that a de facto cut?
No, what it's doing is it's a recognition of the fact that in 1950, average life expectancy was 60, in the 50s, average life expectancy was 68. OAS eligibility was 70. Now people are living till 83, 84, 85, 86, and we're just saying, okay, there's a recognition here. This is going to cost a lot more because we're paying a lot more people a lot longer, and if we're going to have a program that's sustainable for them, we've got to push it out a couple of years, or we won't be able we just won't be able to afford it.
But 2 points on that. One, if you can't afford it, do you know what you'll save in order to make it sustainable? There's still no figure on that then.
Well, what we've not talked about a figure, but we know that the actuary, the chief actuary, has agreed with us. It's not sustainable on its present course with the ballooning of the number of seniors and with them living so much longer.
Minister, just my last question on that is, it's true that the average senior is living and able to work longer. I mean, good health outcomes. But for low-income seniors, will you make any exceptions for qualification to certain programs for low-income seniors, for whom they will, even in 12 years, for another generation, who will have to wait that extra 2 years?
Well, first of all, there are no changes for anyone who's currently on OAS or who's 55 or older. They don't have to worry about it. There will be no impact on them. For
the income supplement.
Well, and again, that kicks in later. But for those who are younger than that, then they're going to have a lot of time to plan for it. Hopefully they will be able to get out of low income by then, but we've also committed that if the provinces incur extra net costs as a result of this change, because they are the ones that provide social assistance, then we will take care of the provinces.
But there will be low income. It doesn't matter. I mean, there will be low income seniors. I'm just saying that, for those low-income seniors in 10, 12, 15 years, there will be many. We know that. I'm not going to get out of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, we hope, but it's not going to happen. But they won't be able to qualify for the income supplement, and so till they're 67. So for those people, I just wonder, in this change, will you make an exception for those low-income seniors?
No, what was said is that because they fall under provincial social assistance programs right now, and if it's 2 years longer, and if the provinces have a net cost to them, then we will take care of that with the provinces.
You'll take care of it. All right, I got to leave it there. Diane Finley, Minister of Human Resources. Good discussion. Thanks.